so honored to introduce and to welcome our guest, who's a good friend also. So it's really, thank you for taking the time. Dr. Osnat Levtzion Korach. I think we've known each other for about a decade. Um, is the You're the CEO of Shamir Medical Center. When we first met, you were the CEO of Hadassah Mount Scopus. And you have a very long and illustrious bio. But I'll say that you're the first woman to lead a government hospital. Um, it's a hospital that I've had the privilege of visiting a couple times. You are serving many, many diverse patients with a diverse staff. You may have noticed in the news that it was Shamir Medical Center, where Osnat is the head, that welcomed, I guess, and treated the hostages from Thailand, the foreign nationals, this week. And I think did so with a lot of pride and incredible compassion and care. So thank you, Asnat, for joining to give us a little bit of insight as to how you see key healthcare needs in this catastrophe. Um, you're treating a lot of wounded people and providing a number of different services. But first, before we kind of switch to that, it would be helpful for you to share maybe a little bit about your experience of October 7th, even on a personal level. Where were you? How did you what was going on when you first heard the sirens that something unusual was what was happening?
So, good evening, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. Charlene is a very, very dear friend, and whatever she asks, I'm always there to help. And I love San Diego, and I love you guys. And Ernest Rady is a dear friend of mine. God, just something came back. So a little bit about myself and about the hospital, but we'll start with the hospital. So Shamir Medical Center is a 900-bed academic medical center. It's very big. And as Charlene said, we serve a very diverse population. Actually, we show in the hospital that coexistence can work. Arabs and Jews, both patients and staff, work, treat, live together. And even during these very, very, very difficult times, this very delicate population, this very delicate system works very, very nicely. Over 50% of our population comes from a low background, a very tough socioeconomic. There's lots of violence as you hear among the Arab population, among themselves. And just this morning, a 20-year-old lady, pregnant, at the end of pregnancy, was murdered, probably by her brother. She was brought to our hospital, but unfortunately, all attempts to resuscitate her or save the baby were unsuccessful. So unfortunately, we have a lot of experience with trauma, and which came to use on October 7th. Personally, I'm Jerusalemite, born and raised, and still lives. And until this morning, Jerusalem was, we had lesser amount of missiles, but this morning we got a tough reminder of the terror attacks that we're so used to in Jerusalem. And with this terror attack, that 3 were killed, 3 were murdered, and others were badly injured. So Amit, my husband, is the head of cardiac surgery at Hadassah, and we have 4 boys. 4 boys, 28, 26, 22, and 16. 3 of the older ones, are officers in Duvdevan, which is one of the most elite units in the army, which makes me a very, very proud mother in general, in regular life. But in the war, I'm still very proud, but we'll get to it, at times where I really could not breathe. And that's very, 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 it's hard to share the feeling, the fear, and the understanding that you have no control of anything. October 7th I do a lot of sports. I do have Ironman. It was another Saturday, regular Saturday, where we were planning to bike, my friends and I. 6:30 in the morning, we took off our bikes, all the cleats and everything. We were just ready to go. Actually, the scary thing is that we were planning to ride to Zikim and back, which is 150K to Zikim and back to where we started. Zikim is where it all started, all the massive terror attack on October 7th. So if we would have been better in waking up even earlier and starting to bike an hour later, I would not be sitting here with you. We start hearing booms, and you're like, okay, look at the sky, like skies are clear. What are these for? And then sirens come. We look at the internet, and then we see on the internet there's cars with terrorists in Sderot. And people say, and you say to one of your others, we say to each other, that's fake news, probably. I mean, look at these fake news. I understand that we're hearing the sounds. I just put the bike in the car and go directly to the hospital. The hospital is in the range of direct hits of the missiles. And we start on one hand getting patients from direct hits. Some were badly injured. And in the meantime, the first thing we do is understand that we need to take the patients and move them to better protected places. We do have an underground hospital in the parking lot, and we decide we have 150 spots there, beds there. We started moving patients from the upper floors to the lower floors, and patients from less secure places to the underground hospital. We're doing it. It's a Saturday. All staff came without even being called. We're starting to do it, and we're doing it under missile attack. Sirens are blaring, and people are just working, risking their lives for the lives of the patients. Times goes by, I think in 2-3 hours, 150 patients, bedridden patients, old patients that are not mobile, were moved down to the underground hospital. In the meantime, we're getting patients, casualties, injured. We're starting to get so first of all from direct hits, but then we start getting them from the battlefield, from the party in the south, and either directly from the battlefield or from Barzilai and Soroka hospitals. The staff was working miraculously. Patients were coming in to the trauma room, being treated, triaged, and from there to the imaging, OR, intensive care, and next. In 2 days, we treated over 170 casualties.
Wow.
In the meantime, all of a sudden we get a notice saying to us that there's a father coming with bodies to the hospital. And then the father comes with the transit with 3 boys. His son sent him a WhatsApp, a location in the party, and told him they're killing us. He left everything, and sent him a location. He left everything and went to fetch him. When he got there, and there were many roadblocks, he just went into the battle zone, and looked for him. And what he found was his son and 2 of his friends dead and burned. He puts them in the car and brings them directly to our hospital. Of course, understanding that it's not for saving, just that's what he could do. I saw many bad things in life. This was one of the more of the hardest things to see. Those three boys are together since third grade. They did everything together. They went to the army, and they went to the after army long trip abroad, South America, whatever. And they went to party together, and they were buried together, 23 years old. Talking about the dead, the other thing that happened was we have in our unit, in our IVF, in our sperm bank, we have a method of preserving sperm of the deceased, and so only at this first night, in the midst of treating more and more casualties, and the helicopters are just continuously coming and landing. We did 7 procedures to preserve sperm from young soldiers some of them were married, newly married, and the new widow wanted to fulfill their dreams of having kids together. Many bravery stories we heard. And it's something that is like Charlene said, it fills your heart looking at our nation, looking at our boys, how strong, how brave they are, leaving everything, understanding that they're risking their lives, but for them it does not matter. We treated the highest officer in the IDF who was injured in the battle, Roman. He was he lives in Ashdod. He heard that there is something going on, took his jeep, took his weapon, and went to Sderot, fought the terrorists until he was injured, badly injured. And the only thing he wanted when he was transferred to the hospital, when can I go back and command my soldiers? And what he had was, he took with him, he was by himself and with his driver, going to Sderot, some volunteers of the police that he found on the way, got them on with him on the jeep. When he was badly injured, he was bleeding badly from his thighs, from his femoral artery. He tried to press it, but he understood that he needs someone to put a tourniquet on. Those policemen did not know what to do, and he felt he was losing it. At that point came a soldier, an officer, and he told him what to do, and he saved his life. Later, this officer also was injured and was treated and was admitted to our hospital. He was 2 rooms next to him. It's hard to emphasize and to pass the feeling of them together, the highly ranked officer and the young officer, understanding that he saved his life. So we're working, treating patients. And remember, I have 3 boys. One is still in the regular army. One was in Nepal. So I said, okay, at least I'm quiet, because he's in the Annapurna, climbing the Annapurna. Of course, I didn't know that on Saturday morning, the minute he heard something, he left everything, walked for 10 hours, took a jeep for 20 hours, and found a flight back to Israel. On Tuesday morning, he was already fighting. Saturday, October 7th, all of a sudden I understand that Yuval, my third one, is in Be'eri. Be'eri is one of the kibbutzim which was totally destroyed. There were hundreds of terrorists, Hamas terrorists there. Many, 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 many were murdered. Many, many were kidnapped. And they had terrible fights there. So at one point, I understand that my son is there. I WhatsApp him. After a while, he answers. He says, "Oh, Mom, no, everything's okay here. We're not doing anything." Later, of course, I understood that he just tried to calm me down. And really, I didn't have enough time to think of it. But I can tell you that, of course, I stayed at the hospital that night. 2:30 at night, I get a WhatsApp from the deputy of the commander of Duvdevan. And he says to me, "Usnat, can you help us? We cannot find these 3 soldiers. Can you look it up?" We have a system, an information system in Israel of all hospitals that any injured patient is listed, can be seen by all other hospitals. Unfortunately, there are many, many, many anonymous, both injured, and as you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds were murdered. I could not find them in the names. Later, we found out that they were killed. And I really wanted, when I spoke with him, I really, really wanted was, on the tip of my tongue to ask about Yuval. Is Yuval okay? And then I said to myself, you're not asking it. If something would have happened, you would have known. So I took a deep breath and did not ask. At first, we did not understand the magnitude of the event. We were just working, treating many, 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 many casualties, but we could not grasp it. Actually, still up to today, I can't grasp what happened there. But then one of the doctors that comes with the helicopter says to us, the way to Kfar Aza, that's the kibbutz that Charlene just mentioned that she visited, is just full of bodies. You just see all the way to Kfar Aza is bodies and bodies and bodies. And then the party, it's hard to imagine what it looks like. So we're starting to understand a little bit what's happening. But we have our issue, we have our mission. We have a lot of things to take care of in the hospital. We have to take, and remember, we are treating patients from the battlefield, but practically we're a battlefield ourselves. Sirens are blaring all the time. You have to, and we're lucky in a way because we have a minute and a half between the siren, when the siren blares and until the missile arrives. Actually, Charlene, when she visited our hospital, we didn't have a very nice welcome to you because when she was there, we had a missile attack. It's not fun. Okay, I think you can.
Few of them, I think. Yeah. Oh, it's not. Can we shift gears a little bit? Go ahead.
Yeah.
I want you to finish what your thought is.
Okay. I think that one of my sad stories for myself was that very, very close friend of my son was killed. Okay, so what we have to manage as a hospital, we have to take care. We have to use protection. We had to make protection. We had to get equipment to the next battlefield. We're still in the battle, and we need to take care of the kids, of the staff kids. So we open daycares because there's no daycare. 75 of our doctors were called to the army. So we need to work with a lot less doctors. A missile hit the hospital. Luckily, it was not, no one was harmed, but it just showed us again how everything very, very. The other thing, which was a big, big mission in Israel, is to identify the deceased. So there was one place in Shua, and then the Forensic Institute, that they use all the techniques, including the very complicated, sophisticated DNA techniques, to be able to identify. Our hospital took a major part in this endeavor as well. The other thing is that we at our hospital at Shamir have a center for treatment of PTSD. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Until now, we used to treat veterans meaning soldiers that came back from the army. Hundreds of patients, hundreds of soldiers were treated and actually received their lives back. What is PTSD? PTSD can be diagnosed only a month or 3 months after the acute event. And PTSD means it has specific symptoms, which in general, the symptoms are that a person does not function as usual, meaning cannot have sleep disturbances, can have memory disturbances, cannot work, and he cannot lead his life as he used to. Our center uses a very innovative approach that was actually developed in our hospital, and that's to use the hyperbaric therapy for that. At the beginning of the war, we understood that now we don't only have soldiers, many soldiers that will have PTSD, but in general, not just the whole nation, but the civilians in the South and in the first circle and the second circle. So we have the people in the kibbutzim, which for them is not an acute trauma because they're in trauma for many years. They don't have a minute and a half to run to the shelter. They have a few seconds to run to the shelter. So for them, it's acute on chronic. And the others are the people from the party that are totally lost. So we are not even 2 months after the event, but we already see, and we started treating. We opened a center for the treatment also of civilians. In the meantime, we started treating the people from the party. We are the second line treatment. We are for the more complicated cases. And we feel that we will see more and more needed when the people from the kibbutzim will go back to their homes and then they'll see that they practically cannot work, cannot live, cannot do those things. The other thing I want to, so fast forward, it's an event following an event. For the last month, we're preparing for the returnees from the hostages. We didn't know who we were going to accept, to welcome. And the idea when we arranged the area, it has to be a dedicated area, close to the public, because we knew that there would be tons of press, families. Everyone wants to be part, to touch and see. So the idea and the approach we know is that when someone comes from captivity, the idea is to be very, very gentle and not impose, not ask too much questions, just be there for him. And we did not know what to expect. We were chosen to be the one who took care of all the foreign workers that were kidnapped to Gaza. The Thais had 39 murdered, the Thai workers, 39 were murdered and 32 were in hostage. Till today, 21 of them came back. And I'll just tell you some highlights. Think of so what we did and what I can share.
And they all came back to your hospital, right?
Yes, they were all. Yes, everyone. We had 21 Thai workers and one Filipino. I can tell. I'll start with Jimmy. Jimmy is the Philippine guy. He took care of an older guy in one of the kibbutzim, Nir Oz. And when the attack started, the old person asked him to go away. He said, "Jimmy, save yourself. Save yourself. You should not be here." And he said, "I'm staying with you." Amitai was killed, was murdered, and Jimmy was kidnapped. When Jimmy came back, the sons of Amitai came to greet and thank him in the hospital. Those Thai workers that came, they don't have families here. So we were their family. And we did everything to welcome them and to give them the best feelings. One of the things that we saw, that they came very malnourished. I'll share some of the information that we can share. We can't share all, of course. So the main theme was lack of food. It could be one piece of bread per day, half a piece of bread per day. At times there a little rice instead of bread. Water. Many of them said that the water was very salty, and maybe it was even seawater. Loneliness. And you see the power of a group. You hear that those that were kept in groups, it was still very tough, but it was in a way easier than those who were kept alone. The variability of the relationship and the attitude of the guards was also pretty variable. Always the first days were very tough, just like in the stories. For some reasons, the Hamas thought that the Thai workers are soldiers, which is kind of very strange. They don't speak Hebrew. They don't even look like Israelis, but it didn't help them at that situation. They didn't even tell them that on the day when they were freed. One of them said to us, I asked him, "Did they tell you that you're now going home?" He said, "No, the only thing they said to is like this. Gaza, no home, Gaza." Think of the fear and the way how I asked one of them, one of them who was kept alone, I said to him, "What did you do all day? How did you?" So he tried to walk back and forth in the little room that he was kept. Some were upground, some were underground. Someone said that they were kept 4 floors underground. Some met others, some did not meet others. And actually what was very important is that they shared information which helped our security agents map what's going on with some other hostages. That was a very important part of getting information. But that's one thing. We have at first, it was interesting because at first they came very quiet, very shy. And after a few days, they felt more and more at home, and just became so happy and very grateful. So food-wise, we're talking about lack of food. One of the important thing was to be very careful in feeding them, because there's what's called refeeding syndrome, that if after starvation you start eating too fast, then you can die. Actually, after the Holocaust, many died because of the refeeding. So we were very, very cautious. Actually, we tried to be very cautious. At times, they're young adults. You cannot hold food away, but we told them, and they haven't seen food for so long that it was like try at least to be very carefully eating at the beginning. We saw very severe disturbances in electrolytes in the body, some things that we've never seen. Very, very strange medical phenomena. A lot will be written on it and learned about it. The body was exposed to things that people these days are not exposed to. So we have, and I think that for us, it was a huge privilege to be those who treated them. And we did all kind of things. We have a Buddha. We had a Buddha there, and he prayed to the Buddha. We had a ceremony. Each time a group came, all the staff was standing there and clapping and welcoming them. For the 17 that left yesterday, we did a farewell ceremony and party. And just to hear how grateful and how thankful they are, it was worth the whole effort that all of us put in. Everyone was involved. The embassy, the army, the foreign ministry, and all of us felt that it's a mitzvah to take care of them. One of the things I want to emphasize is the support of our friends overseas. One of the things that really, really helped in this, it's hard to imagine the sorrow and the feeling that we're all here with. And it's hard to imagine, but I think we all share it. I think what we feel the support and the love from our friends in the US mainly. And we're very, very thankful, grateful to your government and to your President Biden, because his support and his determination, I think, pretty sure that that's one of the reasons that we currently don't have two wars at the same time in the North and in the South. And of course, the financial help, the security help. And just yesterday, we had a visit in our hospital of the special force of the White House that helps with the missing and hostages, that on October 7th flew over to Israel and since then is here. I'm hoping I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I did want to ask you a question. To talk about rehab needs and a couple. I know that rehab is something that you and I have talked about. There are a number of amputees and wounded, soldiers and others. Can you address? And in general, I think Israel has a rehab bed shortage, and this hasn't made that easier. So if you could just address that, and maybe like one or two other key healthcare needs that you see coming out of this crisis in the next 6 to 12 months, or like just as you see in the near term and midterm?
I think with regard to rehab, aliens injured in this war. Unfortunately, as you said, there's lots of amputation. So that's one thing, and I think any help in that end, of course, is very, very helpful. I know that there are now devices that are very sophisticated and can help these soldiers walk and do others. So that's one need, which is good. I think the mental health it is a huge need in Israel. We had a problem before the war, but this war emphasized the mental health needs. The other thing is equipment. We're not done yet. The war will take time. And I can tell you that even in our hospital, the consumption of equipment and the need for more and more equipment is huge. And this is not starting yet with what's happening in the north. The forecast is that the missiles from the north, and if the war will start in the north as well, it will be even much tougher. Their missiles are a lot more accurate, and that would be a lot more dangerous. And we are prepared for that. We are being prepared for that as well, and that's a huge need. So I think, and the other thing is protective facilities. As we know, the missiles from Gaza are not very accurate. They can be very dangerous, but they're not very accurate. The missiles from the north that can get anywhere to Israel are very accurate. It's a different ballgame. If we will start getting hit by missiles from the north, what we face till now is nothing compared to what we are going to face. So we are being prepared to that as well. I think in general, those are the main needs that we are talking about.
So rehab, trauma and mental health, like PTSD, mental health,
Yes.
medical equipment. I guess you have a
Medical
list of
equipment.
that, and I know the hospitals
Yes.
have lists of that, and protective equipment.
And
You have an
protective. Yes, we have an underground hospital, but that's only
that needs
150. We're building
expansion.
additional,
Right.
but we are now expanding for additional 200 beds, but it's still, the ORs are not protected. We have a long way to do in order to be able to perform surgeries in a safe place.
Can you, just as one more question, can you relate to how you're kind of managing your staff? Both the fact that you have so many physicians out on reserve, I think you said 90 were called up.
Well, 75 physicians, but many
75.
more, also nurses and other staff. Yes.
Yes, and how many staff do you have? About 4,900
Yeah.
are doctors. Maybe you could just relate to that, and also managing a diverse staff and how that has been in this time of crisis. You have Jews and Arabs on your staff.
We have Jews and Arabs. So Israel's, everyone stepped forward. So we didn't have, and people just came. People are so devoted. People want to give of themselves. So you saw senior physicians in the hospital 24/7. Everyone is just there. But as I said, in order for the staff to come, we had to open daycares. Regarding Arabs and Jews, we had maybe two events, and we have many staff workers. One nurse that said something, that wrote a post on Saturday morning, not understanding the catastrophe, the magnitude of the tragedy. But she wrote something that an Arab nurse wrote something that she should not have wrote. But other than that, everyone, which of course we took care of in a disciplined way, but we saw that the relationship are so strong that even this but it's not easy, but it actually proved itself. But it's not trivial.
Well, thank you, Asnat. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for being part of this conversation and for sharing your reflections. And we're sending out every other week or every 10 days, like new lists of needs because the needs have been fast and furious. And rehab is definitely going to be included in one of our next upcoming needs because I know that that has come up in a number of conversations. Except for now these last few days there's been this pause, but before that, like waking up every day in Israel, at least for me, the first thing I did was check my phone, and you saw there was usually a report on the soldiers that were very, very sadly killed the night before, but what it didn't address as much were the wounded, the many, many wounded. And so there are so many people that are needing healthcare. All the hospitals are just so stretched, and particularly this area of trauma, mental trauma, protective, both equipment and protection for the buildings, and then rehab has come up a lot. So we'll be sure to include that. And we just really want to, I think I will, on behalf of everybody on the call, just thank you. I was so proud and moved to see how Shamir, how your medical center cared for the hostages that came, with such love and such compassion, and in such a way that I know that they were quoted as saying that they felt like they had family when they left your hospital because your hospital cared so well for them. And thank you just for being such a good leader and an example, and somebody. It was just a joy even walking around with you. Besides when we had to run from the rockets at the hospital a few weeks ago, because even we went to the cafeteria and you greeted everybody by name. And I think like you're managing a huge staff of 4,000, and you talk about the relationships, it's because of relationships that you have really engendered and treasured, that you've established trust. So thank you. And I want to thank everybody on the call for being on. We have our next couple topics already lined up. One of them next week is going to be about the support for the reservist families, for military families who are often having, to become single parent families for months now.
Actually, we did on that end. I didn't.
Yeah.
We have many. So we sent presents. We sent chocolate to the families of our workers that are in the reserves, because being. I think what you're saying is a very we people don't even think of the mother that stays back home with young kids. Her husband is her husband in the war, and she needs to take care of everything.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's some interesting grassroots initiatives that have really popped up that we've been honored to be part of, to support them, to provide help and respite. And also sometimes I know this even from my own family who have soldiers deployed in their families. The soldier comes back for like a day, and kind of re-enters the family and then leaves again. And so that'll be the next one. And then the one after that will be about culture and community. We actually have the curators of the art gallery at Be'eri, which is the kibbutz that Osnat mentioned, that was so ravaged and destroyed. It was the only art gallery in the South. All the art was, of course, destroyed, but the curator miraculously survived. She hid in her safe room for a couple days, and she's going to talk about how determined she is to rebuild that gallery as soon as possible. So thanks everybody for your support. When I was in Israel and also with our San Diego group this week, we heard every place we went. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being there. We appreciate so much you reaching out to us. And we really appreciate the support that you've provided in caring for our brothers and sisters in Israel at this terrible time. Thank you, Osnat. Thank you for doing this late on a Thursday night. And let's hope for a peaceful Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. Hopefully you will be able to go and do your crazy athletic feat on Shabbat. Thank you.
Thank you.